In the largely male-dominant business world, Sheri McCoy, Avon's new female CEO, is showing no signs of weakness. After 30 years at Johnson & Johnson, where she assumes the role of vice chairman of the executive committee, she's now at the helm in one of the world's leading beauty companies, with over 6 million active sales reps in over 100 countries. In today's interview, she shares her secret to success.
And in emerging economies and developing countries, there's still some prejudice against women, particularly for women as leaders. And what advice would you like to give to those women who are trying to build up their own career?
Be persistent at what you can control and making sure you're always doing the best job you can do. I think, I worked for bosses, and everyone's worked for a boss that hasn't been the best boss, or you'd like to work for someone else. But I tell people sometimes that adversity is actually a very good thing, because you learn from people that maybe aren't your first choice, but you learn different things, and you learn things that maybe you won't do when you're developing other people. So I think you look at everything as, how do you make that work for you, and how do you make that work for the company?
And we've noticed that Avon has a lot of female employees, but somehow people have this prejudice about, or biased views about women working with women, and they are having trouble with each other. I'm sorry, but maybe you would like to clarify a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think, as I look at the model that we have, it's based on independent sales representatives, most of whom happen to be women, and they're actually selling their products to other women, and in many cases getting other women to join the company. And so while there are kind of points of view that women don't get along with women, I don't see that. I mean, certainly there are women, even when I was a girl growing up, I didn't love every single one of my friends. I had best friends, and then I had some that I didn't love. There's always that, but that's the same for men. I think sometimes perhaps people make more of a big thing out of it, but if you look at really our business model, it is built on the social relationship and the connection between women, and that makes it work.
So you've been listed as one of the most powerful women by both Forbes and the Fortune magazines. And how would you like to define powerful?
Well, as I look at what's important from a professional success standpoint, for me it's about making a difference, giving back, and certainly delivering results for our employee base, for our representatives, and for our shareholders. So it's about making a difference and delivering performance results.
And what is your leadership style as a female leader?
Well, certainly my focus is always on people, and it's about getting the right people in the right jobs and surrounding myself with the best talent and creating an environment where people can have diverse ideas and their ideas are heard, then collecting those ideas, making a decision, and then setting objectives and goals and holding people accountable to achieve those goals. So it's really about bringing people in, encouraging them to think differently, giving them stretch goals so I can be aggressive that way, and then holding them accountable to deliver those goals.
And you started your career as a chemical engineer, and you still have several patents in the United States and Europe. How did you make the transition or change from engineer to a leader of a global company?
Well, one of the things that I learned in even undergraduate work in science and engineering is it's about solving problems, and it's about getting teams together to innovate and be creative. So that engineering background of solving problems really enabled me as I moved into different roles, and so those skills have come in handy. And I think the thing that helped me as well is being willing to try new things and take risk. So when I was asked to move from an engineering role or research role into marketing, even though I was hesitant at first, it was a great opportunity for me to do that, because I built confidence and I started learning more about how do you solve different types of problems.
But still, being a leader, you have to deal more with people.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, as you look at engineering and science today, because the world's problems are so complex and the technical challenges are so complex, you look at today's scientists or engineers coming out of school, they go on the internet, they brainstorm with their peers, and so I think the best scientists are ones that maybe think on their own, but they tap into lots of other people to get those ideas and insights. And so I do think that traditionally science and engineering has been more focused on being at a lab bench, as an example. But in today's environment and the complexity of the world, the global world, and the challenge, it requires even scientists and engineers to tap into all sorts of places for information. And that involves people and respecting and listening to people that have different ideas so that you can challenge yourself to think differently.
And usually, how do you strike a balance between your career and your family?
I'm not sure there's ever such thing as balance, but I think a couple things that I've learned through my career. One is to focus on what matters most. Be willing sometimes to say no. Is that really important that I need to do all of those things? Because my family's important to me and my job's important to me. And so I don't think I always get it perfectly, but having been doing it for 30 plus years, I'm getting better at it.
Did your children or husband ever complain about you being working too much?
At times my children missed me. Today, though, you can Skype, you can go online, you can text, and so I can still make that connection. And as I look at it, I think my children in some ways are better served because they're self-sufficient. So I was able to achieve that balance. And I think in many ways I share my travel experiences with my children. So in fact, they used to tease me because I would buy, when I was running the Asia Pacific role, I would buy all these products. I'd carry Chinese rugs home on the plane. I would buy beautiful vases and stuff. And so my house is decorated with things from all over the world. And so I think now my children have an appreciation for different cultures. So I also take that as a very positive thing.
So you actually enrich their lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're not afraid to travel. And I've been traveling since I was a little girl. My father was a pilot for Pan Am. So when I was young, I traveled a lot. So I think I've always appreciated the value of seeing different cultures and being in different places. And so I want to give that to them as well.
Also, nowadays China is promoting this idea of the so-called Chinese dream. For the Chinese women, what advice would you give them, particularly for those career women, so that they can realize their dream? Well,
certainly, as I understand the Chinese dream, it is about making a difference for the Chinese people living up to their aspirations, leveraging the full strength of China, and people being happy. And as I think about Avon's goals, I mean, I think we are in harmony with the Chinese dream. It's really about living up to your full potential, going out and experimenting with what you want to do from a career standpoint, and be willing to take risk, and at the same time be willing to focus on what matters most and give back. I think the Chinese dream also talks about giving back from a societal standpoint, and as I look at Avon, it's about empowering women so that they have the opportunity to be able to give back, and I think that's very consistent and again in harmony with the Chinese dream.
And also, when you were trying to enter the Chinese market, how were you trying to overcome the cultural gap, all those differences? Well,
certainly, as we look at our focus, it's really on the Chinese consumer. And as we built our R&D center, as we built our manufacturing plant, it was a domestic mindset to say this is for the Chinese consumer. And so from that standpoint, it will be consistent for us. I know there have been other multinationals that have put things on the ground here for exporting for cost savings. Ours really is to build the business in China so that we have a strong and sustainable growth platform.